On today's show, the Golden State Warriors have a lot to prove as a team this season, but individually, and I want your comments on this, chat. Which Golden State Warrior has the most to prove? On today's Locked On Dubs.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, everyone? Welcome into Locked On Warriors. We are free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe, give us the thumbs up because we will be having live shows as soon as the buzzer sounds starting on October 5th when the Warriors open up preseason with the Los Angeles Clippers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Yes, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly of 95.7 The Game, which is the flagship station of the Golden State Warriors in the Bay Area. Also covered the team for CBS News Bay Area, which is KPIX. 21-22 covered the Warriors championship season. And surrounding me a lot of that season was Matt Kolsky. Look at him now. He's sitting in his big, comfy chair, just getting ready for October 1st when the Golden State Warriors head on out to Hawaii. And they'll be out in Hawaii before October 1st. But that's when the fun will begin. The pressers, the player availability, the content, the real content, and not hypothetical season. But today, hypothetical season continues. On today's show, we're talking about the most important warrior, or the warrior that has the most to prove. I guess both of those things can kind of be correlated, but that's where we're starting, Kolsky. Golden State Warriors have...
Hold on. I'm going to stop you right there because...
Well, hello, by the way.
Hey, how's it going, dude? Strong disagree, Charlie. Only one warrior is the most important warrior. We all know who it is, and he has nothing to prove.
Yes. Okay, fair enough. That most important warrior would be Stephen Curry. He's got nothing else to prove. Except for winning a 5th championship. That said, which warrior has the most to prove in 24-25? Could it be a player like Jonathan Kuminga that is playing for a contract right now? He wants a max. He's going to have to ball out to do so. Could it be a player like Andrew Wiggins, who has had a couple of down seasons, seasons where he has not been playing a bunch of basketball? Or could it be someone like Moses Moody that goes from a lottery pick to, maybe irrelevancy if he doesn't turn it up this season?
I believe I could make a reasonable argument for every single player on the roster other than the aforementioned Stephen Curry. Because, as you said, it's a team with a lot to prove. They think... I was going to say they think they're contenders. They at least think they're in shouting distance, let's say. And a lot of people disagree, right? I believe they at least think this team, as constructed, is competing for the 5th and 6th seeds. A lot of people disagree. So, as a team, they have so much to prove, and somewhat as a result, but also just, if we just go down the roster and look at each guy, obviously there's a handful of dudes at the bottom of the roster that have something to prove that they can just be an NBA player, right? That's not saying so much for 15th guys, two-way players, etc. But of all the guys we expect to play a role, I think they kind of all have something to prove. And now, which has the most to prove? Part of this for me is a stakes thing, right?
Answer the question, Kolsky. Don't dance around it. Simple question. Which warrior has the most to prove?
Well, I'm going to throw Draymond Green at you.
Okay.
Because, now listen, I don't want to be mistaken for saying that, being one of these morons that says Draymond has to prove something as a player specifically. He's got to, if he's never a scoring option, how can he ever be a Hall of Famer sort of thing? It's nothing like that. But again, this is kind of about stakes to me. Draymond Green is a Hall of Famer. Draymond Green is, in my mind, one of the, 100 best players of all time, which, standing next to Steph in the top 10 doesn't Doesn't sound crazy, but it is. It's crazy. Being that good is something special. But this is a guy who has hurt his team the last 2 years with the non-basketball aspects of what he does. He lost his temper. I mean, look, it's all losing his temper. It's the Jordan Poole punch. It's getting thrown out so many times. And look, we can argue about specific incidents with Nurkic or Gobert or whatever. I don't.
The kicking, it's the choking, it's the punching, it's the
thing is, like, I'm very on board with Draymond playing with an edge. Back in the day when people were up in arms about him doing nut kicks on rebounds, I'm in Draymond's corner, man. He always kicks his legs out on rebounds. Are nuts there sometimes? Yeah, that's why you do it, kind of. Is that dirty? I don't know, but it's not new. Lots of guys whose specialty was defense and rebounding have done stuff like that over the years, and I don't have a huge problem with it. But it went too far last year. And even, I think, for his staunchest defenders, which I consider myself to be, it went too far last year. And it certainly went too far with Jordan Poole. We can all have our thoughts on whether Poole, in a certain sense, had it coming. Like, it's not about that. It's about what did it do to the team.
Do you think, Kolsky, with the way that he hurt the team the last couple of years, he doesn't take enough heat from the media, from the fans, whatever it may be? Do you think he doesn't take enough heat, or do you think he takes plenty?
I think it's about right. Who am I to judge how much heat is the right amount?
Let's put it this way. Let's put it this way, Kolsky. If he were to do something again this year that got him 10, 15, at any point would you walk away? Would you, as a general manager, just be like, you know what, it is time to move on, or is that just crazy talk?
Hold on. Am I a general manager or am I Matt Kolsky?
It depends.
Kolsky,
Life is young.
Matt Kolsky has Draymond Green on the wall here, and I don't plan on removing that photograph. Short of, I don't want to speak into existence the sort of thing that would make me take that photograph.
You don't want to put him in a Pistons jersey. I get it.
It's not that would not take the photograph down. He'd have to really reveal himself to be an absolute scumbag for me to hop off board. But would the Warriors hop off board if his temper, his inability to control himself led to another suspension? Maybe. They might try anyway. I don't know how easy it is financially with his contract situation. I don't know who would see the value in Draymond if the Warriors stopped seeing that value. And that's very dangerous, and that would hugely tarnish his legacy. I believe that will not happen, but that is something that Draymond now, 3 years ago, I don't think he had to prove that. 3 years ago, yeah, he played with an edge. Yeah, he sometimes got himself into some trouble, but overall, overwhelmingly, it was to the good for the team. And the last couple years, it has not been. So I'm not saying he has to answer for that, but he does have to prove that he can stay on the floor and be an entirely positive contributor. So for a guy whose career means as much to NBA history as Draymond Green's does, that to me is critically important. Critically important. And obviously, the difference between Draymond being positive and negative as a contributor for this team is the difference in a lot of wins for the Golden State Warriors.
Okay. So you're going with Draymond Green, and coming up, I'm going with who I think is the Warrior that has the most to prove this upcoming season. It's Andrew Wiggins, because with great talent comes great expectations. And you talk about legacy defining for Draymond Green, and I have somewhat of a take in the same realm for Andrew Wiggins. Completely different scenario,
sure,
mind you. Completely different. It's all nuanced, but
you're not going to tell him to calm down.
No, I think Andrew's doing just fine in that department. That's coming up on Locked On Warriors. But first, let's tell you about our sponsor, FanDuel. We got good stuff for you with FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And here's what I got for you, Kolsky. This one's pretty easy. It's a Monday Night Football parlay. Both of them huge favorites. It's the Cincinnati Bengals against the Washington Commanders, and it is the Buffalo Bills taking down the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both of those teams are at home. Bills minus 238, Bengals minus 340. You parlay them together, it's minus 120 odds. So go ahead and put down that $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com. All right, so the conversation continues. Any thoughts on that bet, first of all?
Yeah, it's not FanDuel's fault, but are you legitimately telling me right now to put my money on Cincinnati as a great favorite? Is that what you're telling me? Because I have some experience doing that a couple weeks ago, Chuck.
Oh yeah, and your survivor pool. That'll happen. Patriots, right? It got everyone.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So yeah, okay, I'll trust your Bengals if you say so, Mr. Walter.
Yeah, just don't take the -7. Take the money line.
Okay.
Andrew Wiggins, what is your legacy going to be this upcoming season? Because I had this debate on an earlier show in the summer. And at this stage, with Andrew Wiggins being 29 and being a #1 draft pick, Wiggins is anything but a bust. You can never say, like, even if Wiggins' best years are behind him and this season he did absolutely nothing and retired the next year, you can never say Andrew Wiggins' career was a bust. But you could
Anthony
definitely
Bennett's
say
a bust, right? I mean,
Anthony Bennett is a bust.
Right.
Kwame Brown is a bust. Andrew Wiggins has been a damn good basketball player for a long time. But with great talent comes great expectations. And this is someone that entered the league drawing comparisons to Vince Carter, that put together his best season at age 27 in 21-22, signs the big old extension. We think that we're going to get years out of Andrew Wiggins contributing at a high level. And fair or not, when you come into the league with those expectations and when you show the flashes that he's shown, people are sitting out there right now wondering, like, who is Andrew Wiggins? What type of career are we going to look back on in 5-6 years and say, all right, Andrew Wiggins was this, Andrew Wiggins was that? And I think it's really defined by what he does this season, because if he does not bounce back and he averages below the 12 points that he averaged last season and he gets buried on the bench, is, Kuminga starts taking some of his minutes, or Moses Moody or whoever it may be comes in and starts, or good God, Daquan Plowden comes in and all of a sudden steals Andrew Wiggins' minutes. Like, how are we going to view Andrew Wiggins in NBA history? And that's why I say, you saying Draymond Green has so much to prove this year, for me, it's Wiggins, because I still think he has it in him. It's not a talent ability. It's not a it's not physical right now. It's 100%. Can he get back to the getting his head in the game? And obviously he's had a lot going on. There's, a lot to prove on the basketball floor. Hopefully is at peace. I just want to kind of get that out there. First of all, is that Andrew Wiggins is a 29-year-old human being before a basketball player. And it's very understandable now, knowing his situation, to realize why he has struggled the last few seasons. Like, in life, if you are not at your best mentally, you're not going to put on a performance on the floor. And yeah, take it away.
Yeah. So, I mean, to sort of hammer the specific news here, since I don't think we've actually said it, his dad died, what is it now, 2 weeks ago, approximately. And obviously we know Andrew has been away from the team, played a total of, 108 games in the last 2 years. So, most of those games were missed, not last year, but the year before.
And the team respected his privacy, and they let him take that leave and everything.
Right.
And
by the way, that desire for privacy led to an incredible amount of reckless speculation on what might be happening in Andrew Wiggins' life on platforms like Instagram, which is a damn shame. And I think we now have a pretty clear picture of what the issue was. And I believe it was reported at the end, somewhere at least during last season, that his father had been sick, and that was a large
family issues. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize or even really evaluate what a person is supposed to do when they're dealing with something like that, with that level of family tragedy. And everyone's relationship with their parents and loved ones is different. And I have no idea what Andrew Wiggins is going through. I'm sure it's been terrible. So I don't want to diminish that by any stretch of the imagination. But if we're going to talk about what the Warriors want to do this season, Andrew Wiggins is going to be a critical part of that one way or another, whether it's by being there and being at his best, which we have seen can be incredibly, incredibly good and contribute towards winning in concrete, visible ways. Is he going to be there, but kind of be a shell of that guy, which is what we saw a lot of times last year? And again, I'm not saying it's unfair of him to be a shell of himself as he's losing a parent. But if that is the reality, it makes it much harder for the Warriors to do what they want to do, whether by playing him or by trading him. Will he be there at all? These are all fair questions given the last couple of years. Now, is it possible? And like in a best world, his father's passing allows him to gain closure on something that has been weighing heavily on his mind, and he is able to mourn the loss and use basketball as a good escape from, living without his father, maybe. And that would be great. And certainly that would shut up a lot of people who've been talking recklessly for the last couple of years. I would love to see that for Andrew Wiggins. And in terms of something to prove, again, I don't think he has to prove to anyone the right way to handle tragedy in your family, but he certainly has an opportunity to prove what he not even is capable of, but what he can accomplish on a basketball court at this point in his career. And if he does that, I think there's a lot of good NBA basketball in front of Andrew Wiggins, whether it's in Golden State or somewhere else.
That's how I look at it. This is the turning point with Andrew Wiggins, where it's like, if Wiggins doesn't bounce back this season, I think it's safe to say that it may just never happen, right?
Well, don't say that too loud, because he's under contract for 2 more years after this one, and the Warriors would love to do something with that.
They wouldn't be able to do anything with it if he doesn't bounce back this year, and that's why he's the Warrior with the most to prove.
Although I'll say this, Chuck, that contract is not as big anymore as it used to be.
No, it's not. It's not. But
it's a pretty reasonable.
If he's playing at the level that he was half of last year, he's not worth half of that contract.
That's probably true. But there's still enough talent that he's 26 this year, 28, then 30 million in the 2 years following, right? If you think about like what Steph Curry is set to make in those years, that's, half of a max contract basically that Andrew Wiggins is making in the real giant max terms. Granted, not everybody is allowed to get paid like Steph Curry. I'm just saying. I don't know that he won't be movable kind of no matter what, if you can find somebody who really needs to fill that position and believes they have a coaching staff that can bring stuff out of people. And again, that makes me think Miami. But I will also say this. The Warriors will always want a player like the Wiggins they got down the stretch in 2022 and in the playoffs, right? So if that guy shows up,
this team could be good.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's super likely. He's only really been that guy that one time, but we know it's in there. And if that guy somehow shows up, that's a player anybody can use. And by the way, maybe one guy that wouldn't actually mind coming off the bench in a lineup that has a confusing path to a reasonable starting five, Wiggins. A guy that personality-wise probably would accept that role. I don't know. You're certainly right that there's an opportunity for Andrew Wiggins to prove a lot of people wrong and be a really important piece of a good team.
Coming up, who's more important between Jonathan Kuminga and Brandin Podziemski? And I say more important, but it's which player has the most to prove. Obviously, Kuminga has a lot to prove if he wants to be on this team long term. The Warriors at this point have committed long term to Brandin Podziemski, but he has a ton to prove because the expectations are so high. And again, with great expectations comes a responsibility to put the pieces together, even when you're just 21 years of age. So we're debating that coming up next on Locked On. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. But between Jonathan Kuminga and Brandin Podziemski, two guys that are at an age where they shouldn't have a ton to prove. The only thing that they should have to prove this year is that they are continuing to traject upwards and that they are continuing to get better and that they are good for their ages. Podziemski clearly was last year, all rookie team. Jonathan Kuminga, I thought once he was receiving more than 25 minutes per, he was one of the better players on the team. He's already a damn good NBA player. But for him, the reason it's so big is because he's got a lot of money on the line. He wants that money, and the only way to earn that money is really to go out and show that he is one of the dudes, a capable scorer, a consistent defender, someone that knows his assignments defensively and does it at a consistent pace. Your thoughts on Podziemski or Kuminga? Who has more to prove this season?
It's a really interesting question. I would probably actually lean towards Podziemski, but I prefer to examine the case for Kuminga because, first of all, and you can check my record, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to waste your time. I've been saying this since he was drafted or shortly thereafter. I just feel there's been so much opportunity lost as it regards Jonathan Kuminga, particularly the last two seasons. Most of all, the season before last, when insignificant, frankly distasteful players were playing meaningful minutes at a level that I believe Kuminga could have produced at given the regular opportunity, despite his youth, despite the fact that he did not know how to memorize a playbook per se, as well as Anthony Lamb. I think opportunities have been missed. And I understand why they were missed on a team that saw bigger things for itself than spending time developing a rookie. However, I think if those opportunities had been taken, and no one will ever convince me otherwise, we would not be having this conversation right now because Jonathan Kuminga would have a maximum extension because it would have been obvious by now that he deserved it. I say all this to say, I'm not sure he actually has that much money on the line because barring an absolute disaster, if Kuminga produces more or less at the level he did in the second half of last year when he was playing a lot, you know, scoring in the high teens, slightly underwhelming rebounding totals, but like contributing positively and popping with a 30-point game every now and then, he's going to go into restricted free agency and someone's going to offer him as much as they can, right? And then, yeah, that's a little less than the max the Warriors could offer him, and that they could match that if they wanted to. But like, it's hard for me to imagine a world where Jonathan Kuminga wouldn't draw a maximum offer from someone on
in
the
today's
open
day and
market.
age. Yes,
Exactly.
In today's day and
He's
age,
young, he's remarkably talented, and he has shown some things.
all you got to look at is the magic, right? If they're playing Wagner that type of money, then
That's right.
you would think that Kuminga, especially with the potential, and potential means you haven't done anything yet. He's done
And if
a
I'm
lot.
Charlotte, I'm not going to put a max offer down for Kuminga. How else am I going to get somebody that good? You know, I draft them, I guess, but that's been a pretty wild crapshoot for my organization. So, like, and Charlotte's just an example. The Wizards, I don't know. A bad team, at the very least, would offer him max money if it's all about the money. What I would like to see for Kuminga is that if he's going to take this personally, he takes it personally in a way that's like, well, I want to be here where they're trying to win, and I can effing show you, right? Like, and I would want him to do those things you're talking about, be a little tighter defensively in terms of team defense and rotations and where he's supposed to be a little less freelancy on offense when he's not absolutely feeling it. You know what I'm saying? Less heat checks when you're not hot, sort of a thing. He can do those things. I have full confidence he's capable of those things. And given the opportunity, I think he will do that. And hopefully he will get that max offer from the Warriors, because I think he is the level of player that will come to deserve it. So all that to say, he has plenty to prove. I think everybody here does, like I said. But I also think, like, his landing spot is like a safer one for all parties. You know, the Warriors can ultimately, they've got restricted free agency. They can decide whether they want him or not at whatever price he gets offered on the open market if they don't do an extension, right? If he isn't a Warrior, I think he'll get paid somewhere else. I believe everybody's going to ultimately be okay here. Podziemski, they have now put a lot of pressure on Brandin Podziemski by whatever the reality, letting it become apparent to many people that they're not willing to trade him, even if the guy on the other end is an all-star. Okay? So if that's the level, I don't know if that's demanding he be an all-star, but it's certainly demanding he be a high-level NBA starter right now. And that's a lot of pressure to put on that guy. Was he excellent as a rookie? Yeah, I loved Podziemski's game, but if he's going to be a high-level starting two guard, we're going to have to see better defense. We're going to have to see a higher volume of shooting at the level he shot at as a rookie. We're going to have to see a lot of things from Brandin Podziemski, and it's got to happen now because he was off the table in negotiations for a current all-star with an obvious fit in your team, right? I would also say that Moses Moody has a ton to prove this upcoming season, even though he's still so young. And he can go to a different team and flourish. He could.
But his money's on the line.
That's right. Because Moses Moody has not done enough to get paid somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. If Moses Moody doesn't make himself invaluable to the Warriors, he's going to be on an open market that has no idea what he can do and has no reason to offer him much money. So
he's going to have to prove himself. It's a prove yourself contract. That
whether it's this season or with his next contract. Yeah, Moses Moody. And I don't blame him for that. He's another guy that I think the opportunities were missed by the organization and the coaching staff to figure this out sooner when it didn't mean so much to the team, right? The attitude was, we're too good to spend time on rookies. And my counter to that was always, why don't you use some spare time to figure this out while you're either pretty good or not really that good, not really in it, right? Like, if you're telling me Anthony Lamb needs minutes, I'm telling you, you're not going anywhere. So let's see Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody instead. That was always my position, and I believe that those chickens are coming to roost right now when we don't really know who Moses Moody is as a player, because he has not had a single extended stretch of consistent minutes in his entire career. And I think that's a damn shame.
I agree. Damn shame. Let's finish with this, because I think we're both going to have the same answer. Which Warrior player has the least to prove? Minus Steph Curry in 2024, 2025.
I think it's one of the new guys, right?
I'm going Trace Jackson Davis.
Oh,
like Yeah, I think he was
Kinda
really
gravy,
solid last
right?
year. I kind of think we know what we're going to get from Trace Jackson Davis. He's going to be a solid player in this league for a long time. If he pops and turns into an all-star, no one expected it. It's like, holy
Yeah.
crap.
It's a cherry
You see
on
what
the
Trace just
sundae.
did? Yeah, it's a cherry on the sundae. Like, he, to me, is kind of flying under the radar to where, because Looney has obviously a ton to prove with the Warriors keeping Looney on the roster. Gary Payton has a lot to prove, making a decent chunk of money and not having seen the floor a lot the last few years due to injury. So you can go up and down the roster and point to every single one. You know, Anderson struggled a little bit last year struggled a lot to shoot. Buddy Hield has been,
Melton.
dismissed from teams. Melton with the injury. I mean,
he had an injury, but like I think DeAnthony Melton's reputation is probably the most secure of everyone here, other than Steph Curry. You know, people like DeAnthony Melton. They think he's a good player. Probably he probably tops out at sixth man, so there's not a ton of pressure on him. But yeah, anytime you're in that level of player, Hield, Anderson, and Melton, you're kind of proving yourself all the time for the next deal, right? I mean, that's kind of the gig when you're that level of player.
All right. Will you wake me up on October 1st? I'm
will,
tired, man. The off season has been long.
I'll be up all night. I'll be raring to go. Like at 11:59 and 59 seconds.
I mean, what the hell has happened over the last 3 months? Aside from a gold medal, like Warriors news has been slow. I mean, we got a month out of the Lowry stuff, but that was a while ago, man. That was July 4th.
It was. Thank goodness for the Olympics.
Two and a half months ago. Yeah.
If Steph hadn't had those last two games in Paris, it really would have been bad.
Yeah. Hey, man, we make it work. That's what we do on Locked On Warriors. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. Kolsky, myself, Kylan Mills, and other members of the Warriors Media Collective will be joining the show after every single game. Live shows, go Dubs. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. Peace, Kolsky.
Later.